guys, how's it going? In today's video, I want to talk about some of the brand new annuals that are coming out this year. We've already done a video about the 2021 shrubs. We will link both of those down below. There are 30 new shrubs out this year, which is a lot. And I'm not going to talk about every single new annual in today's video. I've got 14 of them in my lineup, some of which I've grown already. I had a chance to grow them last year in our garden, and some of them I'm just really excited about, and I'm excited to get my hands on them. So let's just jump right into the list. The first ones are called Double Delight Begonias. And there are two different varieties within this category. One is called Blush Rose, which is a gorgeous apricot pink color, probably my favorite color I could have out in the garden. And then there's one called Primrose. It's kind of a sunny yellow, both of which have beautiful big double blooms, and they're lightly fragrant, and they're exactly the kind of plant I can envision putting in our new greenhouse that we're having installed this year. It's exactly the kind of look I want, something low maintenance that blooms, that has a fragrance. I mean, I think it's just gonna be a perfect match. And they don't get massive, like 8 to 14 inches tall, I think maybe a foot, a little bit bigger than a foot wide. So they're really good for containers and hanging basket sort of situations. And they don't need to be deadheaded at all. You can if you want to, but they just continue to bloom all throughout the season. They're not a hardy begonia, but you can dig up their corms or their bulbs and you can store them over winter and plant them again the next spring if you would like to do that. But they're just a really fun looking begonia, and I'm not sure why I haven't done more projects revolving around begonias, either using them in mixed containers or even on their own. I mean, I love this type that blooms, but I also love Rex begonias for their interesting leaf structure and color. It's a vast world, the begonia world, and I just think that these are really fun ones that I'm excited to get my hands on. The second group are begonias as well, and they're called Double Up, but they are a little bit different than the Double Delight in that their blooms are smaller and they grow a little bit differently. So Double Delights kind of want to do more of a, maybe kind of more of a cascading sort of growth habit. The Double Ups have a very dense upright habit, really good for landscapes, really good for containers as well. Their blooms are smaller, but they are still double. And there are three colors. There's Double Up Red, clear red color, Double Up Pink, clear pink, and a Double Up White, which was my favorite. I had all three of these varieties last year out in our greenhouse. I didn't really highlight them much, and I'm not sure why, because even in the greenhouse, performing in their little white cans, they were gorgeous. And the leaf color, I think, is what made me love the white the best, because the leaves have kind of almost this bronze black. They're really deep colored. So when the white ones bloomed, oh my goodness, that contrast was really striking. And I think the thing that makes these really nice is that they're super versatile in terms of light. They can take sun or shade. Not all begonias do that. I mean, some of the older begonias, they need to have more shade. They don't have a very pleasing growth habit, and they don't look very tidy. And these are self-cleaning, like they clean themselves up. You don't have to deadhead. They're just a really nice looking plant throughout the whole season. And I did experience that last year, trying them out even just in our greenhouse. The next one, number 3, is a Superbells called Coral Sun, which is very vibrant. So I love coral, so I kind of am drawn to this one. It's got very bright coral edges with a bright yellow center on every single bloom. So it looks very interesting to have that kind of duo of colors. Superbells are really well suited for containers because they like to dry out between watering. So great for hanging baskets, great for your more drought tolerant plant pairings in containers. You wouldn't want to put a Superbells with a very water hungry plant because the compatibility would be off. And that's just something that I have learned throughout the years. In fact, a lot of the times when I'm planting Superbells now, I'll plant them on their own. I'll plant them just to be the plant that can shine, and that way I can really monitor their water to keep them happy. They do grow about 6 to 12 inches tall and trail up to 30 inches. And if you keep up on the fertilizer, we do a weekly fertilizer regimen here. They really perform beautifully. You can give them a haircut midsummer if they're starting to kind of lull out a little bit, and that'll kind of refresh them and give them a new kind of lease on life, and they'll push new growth and new blooms. Some years I don't even have to do that because I just keep on growing. And the good thing about Superbells as well, and this goes for all of them, is that they bloom from the moment you plant them until a good hard frost. So they give you a lot of interest and color through the season, and they can take a little bit more of those colder temperatures without, they're not one of the early annuals to die off, so they will last a little bit longer. Number 4 are a couple of different types of calocasia, or elephant ear is another name for them. So the two varieties are Heart of the Jungle, which I had a chance to grow last year, and then Coffee Cups. So I tried them in a couple different spots with very different light requirements because I just wanted to see what they would do, because these are tropical plants, and I thought with our hot, dry weather, mostly the dryness, I thought that they would probably scorch a little bit in our sun. So I planted some in a sunny area, and then I planted some underneath a tree that they got a lot more shade. They did get a little bit of filtered sunlight. The ones in the sun performed so much better. I was very surprised, and they got really like robust and thick, and the leaves were huge, and I got around to planting them late, so I was really thrilled with their performance. So both of the varieties get about 3 to 5 feet tall and wide, and I did experience that with the ones I planted in the sun. They didn't get quite 5 feet, but they were getting close. They were starting to really get thick by the end of the season, and I just wished for one more month of warm temperatures, because I think that they were like finding their stride, and they would have really gotten huge had they had a little bit more time. They are a zone 8 through 11. So in warmer climates, they can be treated as a perennial. In our cold winter climates, they have to be dug up, which you can dig up the tubers and you can store them and plant them the next spring. We did do a video about that. Some of them are termed like a running type of elephant ear, like they'll spread by runners, and some will just clump out. The Heart of the Jungle is a runner type, and I did experience that, and I showed that in the video, like how they just sent out these little arms that would then root in and, start growing a new one. And then the Coffee Cups is a clumping type. And so Heart of the Jungle have these huge, big, broad leaves, and Coffee Cups have more of a cup-shaped leaf, which I guess is really interesting. When it rains, they catch the rain, and then once they get heavy enough, they kind of gently tip over and pour the rainwater out. So it's a really fun one for kids especially, and I'm hoping that I get a chance to grow that one this year. Number 5 is a plant called Eureops, and I'm not even sure I'm saying that right. It's spelled E-U-R-Y-O-P-S. Eureops? I did have a chance to grow them last year. I did not have a tremendous amount of luck with them because I planted them a little bit too late, and they do favor hot climates, like southern climates where it stays hot both at night and during the day. Our temperatures do tend to dip at night. We are high desert, so they dip maybe a little bit further than this plant wants to get, but I think they're so pretty, and when I had blooms on it, I just thought it was such a bright spot in the garden. They've got these really beautiful deep green leaves, and then these bright yellow daisy-like flowers. And they grow about 10 to 14 inches tall, 12 to 18 inches wide, and the reason why, I'm gonna try them again. I wanna try them because they don't need to be fertilized a lot. They're one of those that you can apply like a controlled release. We always put that continuous release fertilizer in our containers, and that's about all they need for the whole season. And you can just set them in there. They want heat. They want it to be kind of on the dry side, and they'll just perform. And I love plants like that, something that doesn't need quite as much attention. They also don't need to be deadheaded. They attract bees and butterflies, and they bloom all season long. Number 6 is a sweet potato vine called Sweet Caroline Medusa Green, and this one has an incredibly unique leaf structure. We grow these for their leaves as an accent plant. You can grow them in the landscape, you can grow them in containers, hanging baskets. You do need to make sure that you're pairing sweet potato vines with other annuals that have the same sort of vigor, because these plants will want to take over. So you either need to plant them with something that can handle it, or you need to plan on pruning every once in a while to kind of keep their growth in check, because they will trail up to 30 inches. They are just very vigorous, robust plants. But this one has an interesting leaf structure. They say it's kind of like crown-shaped almost, and they have very deep lobes, like very kind of fine-fingered shaped leaves, if that makes sense. Chartreuse green with kind of burgundy accents, and they have this kind of growth habit where the leaves stack. They kind of overlap each other and stack on top of each other. So they don't get quite as stringy as some of the other sweet potato vines do. They stay a little bit more compact looking. And they can take both sun and shade. The colors will be more vibrant in a sunnier location. If you've had a sweet potato vine in your container, oftentimes you'll run into sweet potatoes, you'll find some tubers, and sometimes they're huge. And so I see the question come up is this an actual sweet potato? Can I eat it? And they are edible technically, but they are vastly different than the commercial type that you find at your grocery store that we traditionally eat. They come from the same parent plant, but the ones at the grocery store have been bred for specific sugar content and flavor and texture and all those sorts of things, and that has been the focus for that type of sweet potato. The focus on these Sweet Caroline sweet potato vines has been, growth habit and the way the leaves look, because we're using them in a different way. And in fact, they don't even want them to form tubers if possible. They would rather have more energy go into leaf production. So the starch to sugar content of the Sweet Caroline sweet potato vines, it's mostly all starch. So you can eat it, but it's definitely not going to be great, and you probably won't want to try it again, I'm guessing. Number 7 is a lantana called Royale Red Zone, which you probably won't see frequenting my garden just because I don't garden with a lot of red, but I know a lot of you love a bright pop of red in your garden, and it does attract pollinators. Lantanas most of the time do, but you'll see honeybees, butterflies, hummingbirds, I mean all of them, wanting to flock toward this plant, and they bloom profusely throughout the whole season, like from the moment you plant them until a frost takes them. They also grow quite large, so 2 feet by 2 feet. You don't have to deadhead them. They're incredibly heat tolerant. So that's another reason why I wanted to include it on the list, because I feel like this is a really great option too for southern gardeners where it stays so super hot. Very low maintenance plant. It can handle some drought, and who doesn't love that? Number 8, I'm super excited about. It's a brand new type of lobularia or sweet alyssum called Moonlight Night, and I've had such great luck with lobularia here in our area. I've grown, White Knight and Snow Princess and Blushing Princess, and those plants perform like nobody's business. They get huge. They can take cold, so you can plant them early in the spring if you can get your hands on some, and they will go, some years they go all the way to Thanksgiving for us. So we get like almost, 8-9 months out of one plant, which is amazing, and they're always full of bloom. The thing about lobularias is that they are termed heavy drinkers. They do like to have fairly moist soil around them, so they're really well suited for larger type containers that have a bigger soil reservoir, which, naturally hold more water, or in the landscape. And I use them in both cases. But if they're in small containers or hanging baskets, they may show water stress a little bit quicker. They usually bounce back really fast, but it tends to be a little bit more of a maintenance thing at that point. And I just love that this variety gives us a little bit of variation in color. So it gives us that soft yellow color, and they do attract bees and butterflies, and they're fragrant. They've just been a real strong performer for us. Number 9 is an osteospermum or African daisy called Bright Lights Red. I had a chance to grow it last year, and I have to say I really liked it. I usually am not drawn to red flowers, but this one has almost kind of a neon coral quality about it. I don't even know how to explain it. And the thing about it, these are like large daisy-like flowers, and you don't have to deadhead them. So they do what's called burying their own dead. What they do is they flush out blooms, beautiful red blooms, and then as those are starting to fade, they'll do another growth flush that kind of comes out above the old flush of blooms, and then they bloom again, and so they bury the old ones and you don't even see them. So they're a very low maintenance plant. They actually tend to like to dry out a tiny bit between watering, so you don't want to plant them with things that require a ton of moisture, because compatibility would be a little bit difficult in that case. But I've had really good luck with osteospermums in general. Bright Lights Red, pink, white. I planted a bunch of them last year, and purple, in the landscape and in containers, and every single one of them did really well for us. They grow about 12 inches tall and wide. I actually think that mine grew a little tiny bit bigger than that, and I used a lot of the flowers for cut flower arrangements, and they held really long in the vase. So that's another bonus for me, because I love to be able to cut some things to bring inside. Number 10 is a Supertunia called Royal Velvet, which is actually not a new plant, but it has been greatly improved in terms of growth habit and bloom, which I was really happy about. Supertunia Royal Velvet is one of the favorites. It's one of the most popular in terms of color, that deep royal purple. But I actually noticed in my own plantings, when I put it in with other plants, it didn't seem to hold up quite. Like the vigor just didn't seem to be quite there alongside the other ones. So I'm so excited that there's an improved version. And a lot of times from year to year when we see the new plant list, there's a lot of plants I'm familiar with already. And we don't usually talk about them because they're just improved versions of the old one. Like this year, there's a lobelia called Sky Blue, which is one that I have planted for several years, but it has been improved this year. I'm not going to talk about it today, but the Supertunia Royal Velvet made me especially excited because I think it's such a beautiful color. It's so versatile to use either in a cool color palette or a warm color palette, and most of us just love it. And Supertunias are awesome anyway. You plant them early because they can take some cold. They last all the way sometimes to Thanksgiving for us. They provide you with so much color and so much in the landscape that to have one that's been improved is a really cool thing. Number 11 is a brand new addition to the Color Blaze Coleus line. It's called Royale Pineapple Brandy. Now there is a Royale Apple Brandy, and they're kind of a reverse of one another. So Pineapple Brandy is chartreuse with burgundy accents, and then the Apple Brandy has a lot more red with chartreuse accents. So you kind of can like choose between both of them, which one like you need, if you need a little more red or if you need a little bit more green in your flower bed. Color Blaze series of Coleus is overall an amazing series. They can take both sun or shade, and I have tested it here in our hot Eastern Oregon, high desert climate. I mean, where it can get 105, 108 degrees, you know, with no humidity. They do require a little bit more water in that sort of situation. Either that, or you need to site them in an area that doesn't get quite as intense of afternoon sun, but they survive it. They thrive in it, and they get quite large, like upwards of 30 inches tall, maybe 1.5 feet wide, and they get massive trunks. Like they just are this huge, vigorous plant. They're also resistant to deer, and they have been bred to really handle heat. And they also don't bloom at all, or they wait till really late in the season to bloom, so that you're not having to deadhead them all summer long, because most of the time we're growing coleus to enjoy their leaves rather than their blooms. Number 12 are a couple of new additions to the Buried Treasure strawberry line, which I've been growing Buried Treasure Red for the last couple of years. In fact, last year, my Buried Treasure Red, they were on their second year in the ground, which they are a zone 4 through 9, so perennial in quite a few areas. The second year was amazing. I mean, they're fruit set all season long. They're an ever-bearing type strawberry, but they seem to always have like a bowl full of strawberries available for me to pick all the time. And Benjamin loves strawberries, and he was eating off of them all the time, and I still had enough to make ice creams. I have a bunch in the freezer, which is amazing. And the berries were much bigger the second year, and I think that they had a better flavor. I don't know. I don't know if just keeping them in the ground for a little bit longer does that, but they were amazing. And now there's Buried Treasure Pink and Buried Treasure White. They all have a semi-double bloom, so they look kind of fluffy and ornamental. They're really good for hanging baskets, or you can tuck them in the edges of containers that have other flowers, and then you can have that addition of strawberries kind of hanging over the side. That extra interest is always really fun to see. So they do bloom from about the time you plant them until the end of the season, so they're constantly churning out berries all season long. They attract bees, of course, and you can get them from seed now. So they are selling seeds for these 3 types of strawberries. I have some started in our studio, and they should produce fruit the first year. So that's exciting. I know I have those started in there, and I can expect to see at least a few fruit on those plants this year. Number 13 is a Mexican petunia, which I've actually never grown before. And I know a lot of you guys have, especially those of you who live in the South. In fact, this particular plant prefers to be in southern gardens where it's hot all the time. Hot during the day, it's still pretty hot during the night. They'll bloom prolifically if they get that sort of condition. For us up here in northern climates, it takes them really long to get established, just because, you know, our springs tend to be a lot longer and the nights are still pretty cool. So it's one I kind of want to try out though anyway, because I think that they've got the most beautiful periwinkle blue blooms. And they kind of remind me in the Eureops, just in the fact that both of them prefer the heat, and they need the heat to perform, and they both aren't heavy feeders. You don't have to give them a ton of attention throughout the season in order for them just to keep on performing. So they grow about 18 to 32 inches tall and about 10 to 18 inches wide, and attract pollinators like bees and butterflies, and they can handle difficult soil situations. And this one in particular does not spread by underground rhizomes, which is nice. It's nice to have something that stays kind of put and doesn't want to spread itself all over the place. So that is one I am hoping to get my hands on, because I'd really like to try it out here. I mean, I feel like we get so hot here, and I feel like we should be able to grow some things that grow in the South. So we'll see how that goes. Number 14 is a plant called Beanie San Vitalia. It's a type of creeping zinnia. And this is such a sweet little plant. I love these in containers. I've never tried them in the landscape, but I do want to try it this year, because I feel like with the growth habit and the amount of color they produce, I think they would be gorgeous tucked into the very front of a flower bed. They've got these bright yellow, super sweet, petite little blooms. And they just bloom all season long, from when you plant them to frost, and they do bury their dead just like the osteospermums do, in that their new flush of blooms quickly cover up the old ones, so they always look clean. You don't have to deadhead them. They're extremely heat tolerant and low maintenance. I did tuck a few of these into one of the homes we did some planting in last year, and they did thrive for the full season. I planted them alongside some Color Blaze coleus and some super bells, and they all did really well together. So that's it, you guys. Those are the 14 annuals I wanted to talk about today. I think each one of these has something really either unique or interesting about them. So it just makes me excited. Again, like I said in the shrub video, if you are interested in finding any of these this year, like if something piqued your interest, definitely go down to your local garden center and talk to somebody. Right now they're in the middle of doing all of their pre-orders for this next growing season, and so they can be on the lookout for those new things, and oftentimes they'll put you down on a list, and if they get it, they can give you a call. Most of these are available online as well. We do link all of these things down below in the description. So if you want to learn anything additional, because I don't, of course, include every single detail about every plant, that would take a really, really long time. So if you want to do a little reading on your own, definitely check out the description of the video and click on any that interest you. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting and enjoyable, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.